Human creativity, in the eye of the other sapient species of the galaxy conglomerate, was just another way of labeling insanity. Maybe not a wholly misinterpreted notion, since most humans asked would tell you right away that insanity was just a step away from genius. And don't get it wrong, humans usually were quite brilliant in the fields and activities they specialized, even if such activity was just a street performer with a slinky. Without creativity, humans' ingenuity would lack a certain spark. So when first contact was made, the various species from the conglomerate were quite astounded and incredulous by the culture and technological achievements from the humans. Yes, some tech were quite outdated by their standard, but for a species that just 150 years ago were launching themselves with rockets in the moon, and wasn't that the height of madness? And 1 century before that, they didn't even have computers. How? To reach FTL technology so soon was befuddling. There were also the application of said technologies that they didn't think was possible, or just didn't fathom until they saw how the humans applied them. Still, aside from the weird behavior of their new deaf-ordered neighbors who smiled by showing teeth, launched themselves from high places with just a piece of cloth as a safety measure, and made emotional connections with rocks, the aliens still thought of them as not quite that mad. The Phedendra, an avian species that lived quite far from the central hub of the conglomerate, for example, did enjoy free-falling for a long time from high places before snapping up their wings, just as they were about to hit rock bottom. They thought nothing much of humans. That is, until the Doom incident. You see, there's a species in the conglomerate, the Adars, that evolved in a planet with a high degree of electrical storms. The air on the planet was quite literally electrified. There exists zones that build up electricity to such a degree that it is quite lethal for them. So evolution gifted them with the ability to change their scales of colors the more electricity they were exposed to, as a sign of warning that they were approaching danger. All colors found on the human's visual spectrum. They also had a high resistance to electricity, making them a resilient species from a Class 4 death world. Alone, these two features wouldn't stand out to humans, as though they themselves didn't change color when hit with electricity, unless you count the Lichtenberg figures, which they didn't. They do have some resistance to it, above average from the other species from the conglomerate, just below the Adazars. Estimates suggest that about 70 to 90% of humans struck by lightning survive. Combined, these abilities sparked a crazy idea on the mind of one human engineer. You see, there's one human tradition and challenge that survived the ravages of time to this day, trying to run the old video game Doom in the most unlikely of places. From microwaves to pregnancy tests, and even that time when an MIT biotech researcher was able to run the iconic computer game using actual gut bacteria, humanity still persisted on finding crazier places to try and run it. As the years went on and technology advanced, the crown of achievements went to a group of undergraduates from different fields, who, when bored, succeeded in running it on mid-air, or more accurately, through the developed electric fields between the ground and the clouds during a thunderstorm, nanotech in the form of flying transistors, the light scattered through the air, the moisture, and lots of perseverance. You may ask, why didn't they use holograms? Well, the answer is simple. They didn't have that tech at the time. Now, this last human engineer took inspiration from this achievement and created a semi-organic gel filled with nanotransistors that would then regulate the electricity flowing through the air before reaching the scales of the Adazars, and these nanotransistors would amplify or switch the electrical power as needed. His first idea was to create nanobots that would discharge a current with a certain degree of voltage. The colors of the scales varied depending on the voltage, but he quickly dismissed the idea when he didn't find a way to integrate speakers on them. The fact that he could bypass this by using external speakers never crossed his mind until later. And when he could just generate an electrical field around a specific area, and then let the transistors do their job. Then, when that was done, He tested the idea again and again using AI-generated predictions and programs to make sure the experience wasn't painful for the subject. That would hopefully test his work, and to make sure he wouldn't end in jail or start a war after frying the equivalent of neurons on the audiobook. As a final test, he got a hold of one of the animal species of Adium, homeworld of the audiobook, meaning blue fire in their native tongue, quite fitting, with a similar defense mechanism, and conducted the final experiment by testing his theory to make sure everything would work out well. He was 99.9% sure it would. He was ecstatic when he was able to rickroll a random alien by handing him the not-quite lizard and sending the signal that would let the transistors know where to direct the electrical current, and the nanospeakers floating around when to play. The alien stared confused at the moving picture of Astley, as it swore it was never going to give him up. Finally, there was just one thing left, the most difficult of tasks to complete. He needed to find a volunteer to be his test subject. This would prove to be a challenge, as while the human sense of humor was known to the galactic community at large, it wasn't really understood. Humans would find funny the strangest of things, and their meme culture could spark serious debates between xenopsychologists and sociologists, all trying to understand the thought process and culture development that led to finding a horizontally spinning fish amusing. This only led to aliens to be wary of humans in general, since they didn't understand their bizarre behavior most of the time. So he did the only thing that might get him results. He posted a job offer in the recently established, 50 years ago, galaxy-wide extranet known as Gwen. 3 guesses as to which species developed and named it. First 2 guesses don't count. Are you an audiobook looking for quick credits and a day-long term of work? Are you the adventurous type? Apply with Dr. Will I. Parrish to be part of a once-in-a-lifetime, non-invasive, eco-friendly, self-fulfilling activity that will leave you as one of the most recognized sentient in human space. 99.999% guaranteed survival of the experience. Leave the human AI, Gwendy, with your contact info. 3 days went by with him not receiving even spam, and by day 4 he was quite impatient. He was about to go out and try his luck on the streets of Gilu when his neural implant pinged with a notification. He tried to quell his anticipation in order to not be disappointed if that wasn't what he was waiting for, but he couldn't contain his giddiness when he opened his inbox and found the contact information for a being called audiobook. Blue light, he thought. Defo an Adar. Checking the info on the alien, he was surprised to note that Ard was a warrior ad Meril, one of the elite forces of Adium. Shrugging, he happily contacted Ard to let them know that he would meet them on the Finkin's homeworld, Fak, in a week's time. A week later, Dr. Will I. Parrish stood inside the rented space bubble, whose proper name wasn't pronounceable by humans biologically, as it consisted of a series of magnetic pulses, in front of a 250 centimeter tall rainbow-scaled lizard look-alike. Both watched each other. Ard Lizard with calculating eyes, and Will I. Parrish with curiosity and unbridled joy. After some seconds, Ard let out a series of clicks that Will's neural translator automatically translated to English. Human, I greet you in this charged daylight cycle. I endeavor to know of your proposition, shared over the electrical network of data. Will blinked, and couldn't help himself when he said next, You people renamed Gwen as End? Ironic, given today's plans. Ard didn't seem to understand, as the series of clicks End translated as weren't of any significance, nor held any meaning to them. He chose to stay silent on the matter. Will sighed. Today is supposed to be exciting. His life accomplishment that would skyrocket him as the meme lord of this decade would take place in a few minutes. He just needed to remember aliens found rocks falling in slow motion funny, whereas he would find entertainment in said rock falling in slow motion, but only if a mustache was drawn on it beforehand. And googly eyes, and maybe with some background music. That thought cheered him up. Okay, first order of business, explanations. Since the dawn of technology, more so the advent of video games, we humans tried to achieve the improbable by mastering our computing and engineering prowess by testing the limits of what's possible to accomplish. And we have ever since formed a tradition surrounding one of our own past feats. I'm talking about Doom. Ard made the equivalent of a blink by letting his tongue taste the air unconsciously. Unavoidable tragic event? They puzzled. It's a video game, supplied Will. You know, the human interactive vid that is not real and its only purpose is entertaining the masses and letting programmers eke out a living. R sort of nodded slowly, a human gesture that had become rather common around the galaxy for its simplicity in conveying meaning of assent. I am following your current so far. While investigating an old accomplishment of humanity over nature, an idea suddenly struck me. I want to test and record that idea with you, so future generations of humans are similarly enlightened, as I was myself when they see what we've achieved as a species, declared Will with holy purpose, his eyes holding a strange light within them. Ad Lizard was humbled by the spirit shown by this tiny being, and the few doubts he had about coming today without knowing what they were getting into disappeared. They were equally filled with purpose now, ready for whatever the scraggly human charged at them. That determination suddenly deflated with the next explanation, giving way to exasperation and incredulity. Will explained the particulars of the test, showing Ard the charts that guaranteed his safety with only a 0.01% margin of error. So, basically, I'm showing the galaxy the potential this new gel can have in a fun way, as to invite future researchers on improving this wonderful new technology. I will be basically a living screen, Ard intoned dryly. Bingo! Now, do you agree? I have a contract here. Ard read carefully the contract handed, which basically boiled down to guarantees of safety and a hefty sum of credits in case any mishap with the new technology were to occur, alongside the already large sum that would be given to him as a volunteer. He pondered briefly about his decision, but he didn't see anything that would potentially screw him up in any way. Ad Lizard sighed briefly, and with a pressed finger, he took his final decision. The biometric scan flashed briefly, and the contract was signed. Ard wasn't sure why a warrior like him had volunteered in the first place. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the fact that the post was written in his newly bought holopad. The extravagant way in which the post in the electrical net of data was written, catching his attention and bafflement. He had just made an account in the wide social network famous on the galaxy, InstaHub, as a way to get information on the wider galaxy faster. Ard was also known by his fellow Ardazars as one of the few who were on the wilder side of the species, often partaking in shenanigans no other respectable Adars would take part of. The credits weren't anything to scoff at either, and he didn't have anything planned for the next 2 cycles before he was called to arms again. Either way, there was no backing down now. Will started to set up the equipment, instructing the giant lizard in how to set up the gel, reassuring him it was eco and bio-friendly, while he made some last checks up on his holopad. As everything was set up correctly, the moment Dr. Will was waiting with unabated anticipation came. He carefully set up the last holo recording for his livestream, the most important part in his mind, as this would ensure that the galaxy at large will know Will for the rest of their short cycles, and he would establish himself between legends. The moment most awaited came. He pressed start and right away, 2 people joined the livestream. He smiled widely, uncaring or unknowing of scaring other aliens, and started to speak to the holorecorder. Greetings, fellow humans and fellow galaxy denizens. Today marks a day that will be engraved on humans' rich history, for I have completed a 4-year project of mine, and now I'm quite pleased to show you the testing phase of it. He showed his companion, and Ard stoically raised his arm in a way that had Will promptly lowering it, while trying very hard to contain his laughter. I'm Dr. Will I. Parrish, and this, fellow denizens, is Ad Lizard, a warrior admiral who volunteered himself in this massive endeavor on his own free will, and he will be the star of the show today. Will paused dramatically before monotonously saying, "As a disclaimer, all participants in this test are fully consenting, all aware of what everything will entail. This will not, hopefully, have any impact on the well-being of the main participant, nor will he come to any emotional distress as far as I'm aware. I've tested the devices used today quite thoroughly. This project is also eco-friendly and will not have any negative impact on the sentience and sapience of the galaxy at large." Will then smiled widely once again. Now, the moment you were all waiting for. You may be wondering, so Will, what is this project about? And to make a long, tedious scientific explanation short, I've made a screen. Ard kept silent and unmoving throughout all the tirade. Will checked briefly the view count and was quite pleased to note 300 people were watching the stream so far. Now, what's so special about this screen, you may ask? Well, the screen is not actually a screen, but a gel that acts as an electrical regulator, and it can be used in any surface that conducts electricity. Now, this is quite useless on its own, but as you may or may not know, Adars have evolved a nifty defense mechanism that warns them when they are in danger in electrically charged environments. Furthermore, they are quite capable of resisting high voltages that would normally kill your average sentient, Will explained, getting more and more enthused the more he explained his project. R started wondering if he should be offended by another sapient species using him as a glorified screen, but he was beginning to get entertained by the mere idea the more he thought about it. If Will succeeded, Ard was in the best position on what may possibly be a new fashion development for his species, unintended as it may be, and he was ready to reap the benefits it would bring in the future. Now, on to the experiment, intoned Will I Parish solemnly, and without further ado he pressed the red button. For 10 awkward seconds nothing happened, and the live chat of InstaHub, which was filled with more people than before, started buzzing with comments, from a simple, "Surprise, it didn't work," to more funny comments like, "You have no game with lizards, dude." But then, the amazing thing happened. The Doom intro scene started playing. Will I Parish started crying tears of joy. And Lizard watched, puzzled, his stomach, somewhat befuddled by the game. The stream peaked at 10,000 views live, and then exploded into a meme, which made it the most watched stream in the galaxy, surpassing the video of an egg falling with Linkin Park soundtrack. Humans did it again. They managed to run Doom in the most unlikely of places. Will I Parish sadly perished before he could reap the benefits of the new fashion trend between the Ardar species.